Yeah, we don't want to do anything to scare your children. That's the last thing we want to do. We don't want to scare anybody.
What is the location?
Walk away from there, okay?
Hello and welcome back to another episode. Now, I just want to quickly say welcome to all my new subscribers. This week has been a really special week and my channel, with all your support, has hit 1,000 subscriber mark. I just want to say thank you so much. It really does mean a lot to me. This week's episode we're covering is the Hello Kitty case, and it does come with a listener discretion. Obviously, we're going to be talking about this young girl that has died and has been tortured beyond it's just awful. So please, if you are affected by anything like this that we talk about, please look or try and find another one of my episodes. If not, there'll be something else on YouTube that you can find and come back to me. So I have another episode that I'm going to be releasing the weekend. It's about a domestic violence case, not in the newspaper. It's just someone's case. I am going to change the names and use stock photos to protect their identities of their family. So I hope you will stick around for that one as well. Thank you. In May 1999, a young girl, we're going to call her Lucy, she walks into a local police station in Hong Kong. She's only 14 years old and she's in a very distressed state. She tried to explain to the police officers that she is being haunted by a woman who had been murdered a month earlier. The officers really didn't take her serious at all and tried to just move her along. But Lucy insisted, and she stated that she knew the name of the woman who had been murdered, and she also told the officers that she had taken part in this crime, alongside several grown men who were all part of the triad. And she explained that one of them was actually her boyfriend, and he was the main ringleader. And now she is being haunted, and she believes that if she confessed to the police officers, this will right her wrongs. Lucy thought that this might stop her from being haunted and having such bad nightmares. One of the police officers thought that they would hear her out, so he sat down and listened to what she had to say. The police officers then went to the apartment where Lucy said that the woman had died. The police officers then realised that Lucy wasn't lying, and they made a horrifying discovery in a Hello Kitty doll. Now we're going to rewind back and we're going to talk about a young girl. Now this young girl is called Fan Man Yi, and she had a terrible start in life. She was abandoned by her own family, it's believed, which caused her to go live in an orphanage. Now when Fan Man Yi turned 16, she had to leave this orphanage. Sadly, Man Yi's life didn't turn out much better. She began to use drugs as a way of an escape from reality, but the drugs soon took hold of her and she began to use them more frequently. By the time she was a teenager, she was an addict. So much so that she had to work as a sex worker to try and afford her habit, and if this didn't pay enough, she had to then turn to petty crime. Now things looked like they were going in the right direction for once for Man Yi. In 1996, she managed to get herself a job and she worked in the Express Karaoke nightclub. This is where she met her future husband. And although things were going well, the neighbours would later state that this was a very abusive marriage. Man Yi's husband was also a drug addict, but this really didn't stop her at the time. After time passed, Man Yi got pregnant and had a little boy. In 1997, Man Yi had a job as a sex worker in the Romance Villa. Now, this is said to be like a brothel / nightclub. Basically, they're hostesses, and you can pay to have more experience. So, like, if you wanted escort, then you could pay to have an escort, or you could have a sex worker, or I believe they call it the girlfriend experience. But I'm pretty sure what I've read is all down to the lady. So it just depends on what they want to do. Now, this is where she met a man called Chan Man Lok. He was a regular client of Man Yi's. She was his favourite. He would pay to have sex with her all night long, and they would spend a lot of their time getting high on drugs, mostly ice, which is methamphetamines. They would go for like long binges and long sex sessions, it's said. Man Lok was 34 years old, well known. He had a reputation. He was a big drug lord, he was a loan shark, and he was a pimp. And he was also part of the triads. One night, Man Yi made a grave mistake, which would cost her more than she ever imagined. When Man Lok and Man Yi were getting high on ice, Man Yi had the idea to steal Man Lok's wallet. Now, he had 4,000 Hong Kong dollars in this wallet, and it didn't take a genius to know that he is not someone you steal off. When Man Lok found out, he ordered Man Yi to pay back the $4,000 and a further 10,000. This was for disrespecting him, which she did. She paid it back, and she paid it back on time, but this really didn't suit Man Lok at all. And then he decided that this wasn't good enough, and he wanted a further $16,000. And this was in March 1999. So Man Lok and his two mates, 27-year-old Leng Xing Cho and 21-year-old Leng Wai Lin, they planned and carried out the kidnapping of Man Yi from her home. Man Yi arrived at Man Lok's apartment at Granville Road. This is where she would stay. The apartment was filled with Hello Kitty merchandise. It was said to be all over the apartment, in everything from bedding to curtains to rugs to toys, everything. And this apartment was a run-down, dirty old dump, basically. And you can see pictures online of that. Man Lok was going to force Man Yi to work as his private sex worker. So he would force her to have sex with his friends or anyone that he knew, and he would make money off her, and this would pay back the £16,000 that he, or dollars should I say, that he wanted her to pay. This was his plan. But Man Lok and his friends would beat Man Yi, and this would cause her to not be able to work sometimes. Due to this, she was continuously covered in bruises. No one wanted to pay for Man Yi the way she looked. So she lost work and she couldn't pay him back. And the never-ending debt was not gone away. Man Lok still wanted his money. So Man Lok and his mates would beat and torture Man Yi. Every single day she was put through the same thing. Now Man Lok, he was 34 years old, and his then 13-year-old girlfriend, who we called Lucy, would be the one to later go to the police station. Now Lucy was in the apartment while her boyfriend and his mates were torturing Man Yi. They told Lucy to join in. Lucy later told the police that she did join in, and the reason she did this was she thought it would be fun. Man Yi was repeatedly beaten, tortured and raped. Man Lok and his friends would force Man Yi to fake laugh and smile while they attacked her, so viciously, and if she didn't, she would get it way worse than she could ever imagine. She had to look like she was constantly having fun. When Man Yi wasn't being attacked, Manlock and his mates would be in the other room getting high on ice, basically a lot of the time. And they played like computer games. It said that they loved computer games. All they cared about really was ice, playing video games, and torturing this young girl. Now, with Man Yi always being hurt, Manlock's mates, they didn't even want to have sex with her anymore, which they said they didn't want to pay for sex anymore with her, but I highly doubt it was paying for sex. I think it was more rape than paying for sex with her. Manlock and his friends would step up their torture. They would use various different items from the kitchen. In fact, anything that they could get their hands on, they used. They used straws, plastic ones, and they would burn the straws so the plastic melt. And then they would burn the bottom of Man Yi's feet. Then, if this didn't work, they would just use like a lighter or a burning naked flame to burn Man Yi's feet and set them on fire. She would have blisters on the bottom of her feet, and then they would smack her feet with whatever they had in their hand, like a piece of cane or a metal pole, anything. They would just hit her feet when they were so badly burnt and blistered. In Man Yi's open wounds, which they caused, they would pour chili oil directly into them. They would urinate into her open wounds. They would then urinate into Man Yi's mouth and make her drink it. Now, Lucy, it said that she was forced to basically put her feces in a box, and then they made Man Yi eat it. They made Man Yi drink every type of oil they had in the kitchen, and anything that they could do to Man Yi, they did basically. In between beating her and raping her, they tortured her with anything from the kitchen. Completely just anything. It's horrible. Not long after they did this, they had another idea. Now, Man Yi was going to be hung from the ceiling. So they got electrical wires and they wrapped them around her arms and stuff, and they suspended her from the ceiling. They would then beat her so badly with metal pipes, Man Yi's body couldn't take any more. So they just left Man Yi hanging from the ceiling all night long. Man Yi faced so much pain and torture, her body gave up, and Man Yi passed away a month after being so badly beat, raped, and tortured. Lucy would then be the one to discover Man Yi had died. She went through to tell Manlock what happened. They removed Man Yi from the ceiling and put her in the bath. They then dismembered Man Yi, and after decapitating her, they placed her head in a hob, in a pot, and the hob in the cooker, and they boiled it. They was also said to be cooking food on the next hob, next door to Man Yi's head, and they used the same spoon to stir their food and Man Yi's head. They disposed of Man Yi's body parts, leaving her head and 1 or 2 teeth, it said, and there was some organs of Man Yi's left in the fridge. After boiling Man Yi's head to leave just a skull, basically, they then placed her head inside a Hello Kitty doll, which had a mermaid's body. Now, after Manlock and his mates left the apartment, they basically took everything and emptied the apartment. Lucy, who was now 14 years old, couldn't cope with the guilt. She couldn't stop having nightmares, and she couldn't face what she did. She believed she was being haunted by Fan Man Yi. So she went to the police station. And she explained how Man Yi was haunting her. The police arrived at Granville Road and they walked into the apartment where the police noticed an awful stench coming from there. This is when they saw an almost empty apartment. They didn't really have much to search, and on the side was a Hello Kitty doll that Manlock and his mates had left behind for some reason. Inside the Hello Kitty mermaid doll, the police officers found Man Yi's skull. They also found a tooth, and then in the fridge they found some of Man Yi's organs. The 3 men were soon found and arrested. Now, at the trial, Lucy stood her ground. She took the stand and admitted what she had done to Man Yi. She did this in exchange for her protection and new identity. This is why we named her Lucy. Now, she did explain what these 3 men put Man Yi through. All 3 men stood and explained that they didn't kill Man Yi. She was a drug addict and she overdosed on ice. That was what they said. And then they panicked and disposed of her body. They didn't kill her. Unfortunately, because there was very few remains to Man Yi, the police medical examiner were unable to determine Man Yi's cause of death. So the trial lasted 6 weeks, and the 3 men, Chan Manlock, Lung Xing Cho, and Lung Wai Ling, I'm sorry if I get that wrong, was all sentenced to manslaughter, not murder. Their sentence was for life, but they had a possibility of parole after 20 years. Now, this would be in 2020. I couldn't actually find anything on their release, so I don't think they have been released, thank God. Manlock and his friends never once showed any remorse for what they did to Man Yi. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this.
No one wants to go to jail for things.